What's going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to talk to you on Lucid. Q3 earnings were yesterday. I want to go over some of the highlights that you need to know. So I want to go over the good, the bad, and the ugly. Before I get into any of that, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, let's get right to it. So I am filming this pre-market. As it stands, it is down 7.21%. And based on a lot of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you, I would anticipate for it to continue to trend down even further during the trading day. But once again, as I always say, I'm not a financial advisor. You guys always do your own due diligence. But let's start off with some optimism, some positive stuff that came out of their earnings. One of which was earnings per share. Surprisingly enough, Wall Street expected around -35 cents per share, and that was based on 9 analysts. Came in at, I believe it was -28 cents or -24 cents. But regardless, very positive stuff. And Sherry House did attribute that to just lowering expenses. And of course, they've been really stating that over the last several earnings, the fact that they are really being self-aware, trying to cut expenses, and especially in Q1 as well, they laid off, I think, 18% of their staff, which I think it resulted in only 15%, but you get my point. They clearly are moving and trying to be self-aware about them burning through a lot of cash. So this was a surprising positive, but over and above that, looking here on their transcripts, so Peter did say, we can possibly help some of these OEMs as a partner. And some context to this, ultimately they were talking on how a lot of the companies are struggling in the EV market, and potentially with Lucid's technology, there's an opportunity for licensing. So very bold statement, the fact that they said that they're going to be, or maybe help one of the bigger OEMs, so maybe Ford, GM, or someone else, which would be huge for Lucid as far as revenue. So this, in my opinion, was a very good positive and a surprise one at that, because technically, if they do ever partner with a big OEM, that might be one of the very big strategic partnerships that they ever have outside of the PIF. So Lucid actually doing something for themselves and not being handed it by obviously the PIF. So once again, this is a positive. And then moving on, there was this individual. So Mark Winterhoff, who is the new COO, didn't replace anyone. This is a completely brand new position. Peter spent around 5 minutes talking about him at the very beginning part of the actual conference call, which on a side note, they did start 7 minutes late and they didn't really say anything, but whatever, that's beside the point. So obviously, Mark does bring around 27 years of experience, doesn't actually state where he obtained that experience from, because when I was actually reading through this, while Peter was ranting about him, the only thing I came to the conclusion, it kind of looked like he just literally started brand new, because they're talking about his actual graduation, how he graduated with a master's degree in electrical and electronics engineering. Like, if he's been in the field for 27 years, you don't necessarily have to talk on his education that happened like 30 years ago. So once again, a lot of people seem to think that this is a positive. Myself, I kind of see it as a neutral. It's not really a positive, not really a negative. No reason to go out and buy Lucid because of this individual. But like I said, I think a lot of people are very optimistic about this. So this is why it is getting classified under positives. And then the only other thing is they did state that around 700 units, or the, I guess, shells, are heading to Saudi Arabia, and those will be manufactured and ready in Q4. So the turnaround time is fairly good for that. So who knows? That's also kind of another positive. But when it comes down to that, there's some negatives. So unfortunately, I hate to say it, that is the only positives that stood out to me. There could be plenty more. If there is any other positives that I did miss, let me know in the comments below. I definitely would love to hear a lot more positives about the earnings. But when it comes down to some of the negatives, let's talk on some of that. So as it stands, they are burning through roughly around 752 million. So definitely very, very high. And cost of revenue, Sherry House pointed out as a positive the fact that it went down, but still 469 million versus only bringing in 137 million in revenue. Like, that is very, very bad. Like, it's just a very bad equation that somehow they were boasting about. And one thing that I've never really liked about Sherry, which, no hate against Sherry, she's definitely a very smart individual and saved Peter's ass many, many times during conference calls, but she's always wrong. plain as day. I have called this time and time again. So she basically said that there's sufficient amount of cash. Actually, I'll pull this up right here. Sufficient amount of cash or sufficient liquidity at least into 2025. So I have found that whatever she uses as a benchmark, subtract at least 2/3 quarters, and that is the true amount. So in reality, this is BS, no different than what she previously stated time and time again. So she really focused on having 1.1 billion sufficient amount of cash. And they keep trying to group short-term investments in the cash component. Like, it doesn't make sense. That's not what you do, especially rolling up here. So cash and cash equivalents. Why are you like it? I don't know. It's just very misleading. And they're doing that on purpose, unfortunately, to make it look like they have more cash than what they actually did. And during this same time period of the earnings, they did submit this. So a little bit more of an addition to the S3. So they did bring this up. In all fairness, it is just them registering shares. They're not diluting yet. They will. But as of right now, they're just registering the shares. But once again, before the even earnings call started, I did say that they're going to be needing to dilute most likely in Q4, if not early Q1. And then very coincidental, this actually came out. So funny stuff overall, but this is definitely a very big negative. Just the fact that they are not able to really judge how much cash they do physically have. And then plain as day, one very massive negative is just looking here. They cut their outlook, their 2023 outlook from 10,000 to 8,500. Not good whatsoever at all. And the negative of this, like, I feel like a lot of people just are looking for hope and they kind of overlook a lot of things that is truly said. So here, what they actually stated is this reduction is not due to any bottlenecks whatsoever. So, of course, someone logically will think like, okay, so if it's not bottleneck related, then it's demand related. So once again, this is now kind of the back-to-back kind of situation that we are just on the edge of our seats, waiting to hear what Lucid's explanation for their crappy results were. And I feel like that's been the case for the last year and a bit. We've just been trying to justify their bad results, keep saying that they are a new company. They are not a new company right now. And the only reason probably they are still where they are and not in the $1 range is because of the PIF, which in reality is one of the biggest catalysts for Lucid, hands down. And then obviously secondary might be their technology, but regardless, like, this is not good. And keep in mind, the original 2021 projection was that it was going to be 49,000. Then they reduced it down to 10. Then they reduced it down to obviously what I just talked on. So it makes you think, for 2026, when they are projecting 251,000 vehicles being produced, is that really just going to be 40? Is there any point? Why are they even working on the AMP1 facility, the phase 2 transitioning? Just keep it as it is. Like, if you're not even going to produce anywhere close to the capacity, why even push? Why even waste the unnecessary money? Makes no sense to me. So that was definitely a very big negative. And one pet peeve of mine, so I'm kind of ranting a little bit, my apologies, but when it comes down to them answering questions, they are horrible, because these were the questions that was posed by Retail to management. And it says, what is the plan for Lucid to expand their operations and start becoming a profitable company? I've said time and time again, they're not in the capacity to answer this question. So they can't answer when they're going to be profitable. I estimate probably mid 2027, but still beside the point. So when this question was answered, Sherry physically just said, oh, I already answered this question. It's like, no, you did not. The question was expand their operations. The only thing that she even previously talked on essentially was their current operations. The fact that AMP1 and AMP2, and that technically she referred basically to their slide deck right here where they talk on these. So she just said, oh, we have 45 studios, we have the AMP1 facility, AMP2 facility. So where is all the expansion? I don't get what they're talking about whatsoever. Like, they are horrible. And this falls down onto Sherry. Very, very bad answer when it comes to that. And this is why the Q2 earnings, I was very surprised, and I was actually very optimistic because they were actually Peter and Sherry, I mean, were being more transparent. Whereas this time around, it's like they're back to their old ways of just blabbing away and just thinking people are going to forget what the original question is. So horrible, horrible stuff. And this, hands down, was one of the stupidest answers I've ever heard from an individual, a CEO. So Peter answered this: is there any plans to stop the current slide of the stock prices? What are the efforts Lucid is doing? Peter said that everyone is struggling, everyone is down. So at the time when I was live streaming, I kind of went like this. So let's look at the 1-year chart for Lucid. Complete garbage. Okay, let's look at technically Tesla. Okay, so they're green for the year. So they're not as struggling as everyone, supposedly, as what Peter said. Let's look at Rivian, because Rivian and Lucid are kind of similar, right? Which, on a side note, they are up 7% pre-market. But yes, they are down for the year, still nowhere near Lucid. So Lucid is in a realm of its own. Like, this, hands down, is very, very crappy. And the fact that Peter had the balls to say that everyone is struggling and everyone is down, it's like, man, are you that disconnected with the stock price? So again, I wish that there was more positive for me to talk on, because the reason why I still cover Lucid, I actually like it. I really do like it. I own it, and in several different accounts, in fact, and I like the technology. Just, I'm tired of this crap by Peter, Sherry, and investors trying to justify their crappy answers, which I get it. It's sometimes bad to bash your own stock and whatever else. But at the same time, you cannot just overlook a lot of the things that they constantly say and do. Like, I haven't looked on Twitter or whatever else yet for people to try and justify this. There's no way on earth anyone can justify this reduction, and for them to state that it's not due to bottlenecking. So that's very, very bad. And plus, even over and above that though, just looking at the production and delivery numbers, a lot of people were assuming that maybe it was due to rolling blackouts, what they previously stated was going to happen. They didn't mention that once. So this, in reality, was very bad. And one thing that stood out to me during the actual earnings, so I'll kind of scroll right to the top of the transcripts. So you notice how there's only roughly about 2 analysts that participated in the earnings call. Single-handedly, that is the lowest in Lucid's history. And I know that might seem kind of minuscule and people probably will overlook that, but that does show that institutions are not looking at Lucid as a profitable company or even as a good investment. That's my own opinion, because of course, what if Tesla had their earnings and only 2 analysts jumped on board? Well, guess what? There would be like Armageddon. People would be panicking through the streets. It'd be absolutely crazy. But as of this morning, though, this is the latest round of, ratings that have come in. So there was roughly so far 4. John Murphy from Bank of America, who does have a 53% success rating. And Bank of America technically was one of Lucid's longest, financial partners. And they are slowly turning on us. So $7 price target. CFRA Garrett, who does have a 56% success rating, $2 price target. Jamie RF Lafferty, 23%, pretty bad rating, but $5 rating, downgraded. Same goes for Cantor Fitzgerald. So analysts are slowly starting to turn on Lucid. Even myself, I do see, based on the technicals at least, that this might touch $3.50. And obviously at that stage, things get very, very shaky. My own opinion, of course. But over and above that, there was a lot of things that was actually brought up that are kind of neutral, so I'm not really going to classify them as negative. The only other negative that really stood out to me was the fact that the 700 shells that are being sent to the AMP2 facility, which again are going to be starting very early, so the turnaround time is fairly fast on that, but they don't have buyers. They said that 700 vehicles or shells are going to be for a mix of government and also customer orders, so retail. But Sherry was unable to validate that those 700 are already pre-sold. So if you do the basic math on this earth, probably in North America, there's roughly around 5,400 vehicles that is just lying around. That is constant, just a domino effect from 2022. So somewhere on this earth, there's a lot of Lucid vehicles that have no owner whatsoever. So I get the fact maybe that is why they want to slow down production, but still it does signal that there's a lack of demand. And if they start to really push vehicles to Saudi Arabia, then there might be a lot more vehicles sitting out there as well. So I feel like just lack of demand is one of the key words that isn't necessarily the best at this stage. So let me know your thoughts on this. Don't mind me ranting. I still do really like Lucid, like I always say, but they really need to get their crap together very, very fast. Like, they cannot keep affording to burn through all of this money, so much money unnecessarily, when, I don't know, like, they had so much opportunity. And plus, in the next, maybe, I don't know, just throwing that out there, maybe within the next year, some competitors might actually catch up to them potentially on a technology level. So their advantage that they currently have might disintegrate. So that's also something that they need to really, really realize. Let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And even though Lucid goes up, down, sideways, all over the place, take advantage of these damn promos that I've been sharing with you. Absolutely amazing, best in the market. So sign up for an account with Movemove, throw $100 at it, and you get 5 free stocks. Each stock is valued up to $2,000, plus you get 1 free share of SoFi. And any cash in this account, you are going to be earning 5.1% APY. So let me know your thoughts on that. Take advantage of this, only up until November the 20th. Link in the description below and also the comments. With all that said, I appreciate all of you watching.